Thanks for having us back. So yesterday we had a presentation about DPIN, so decentralized physical infrastructure network, and that this is a new trend in crypto and how it works. And in that context, we also presented our project as a fully decentralized ecosystem. And today we wanted to show you some more insights, so what it actually feels like, because it might have been a bit complex in terms of how it's built with all this decentralization. And obviously one of our goals is to make it very easy and very accessible for everyone. And that's what we're basically showing today. So my background is in the software industry, media industry with Brandguardian. So they're a brand management software company. So we're building complex collaboration and data management software for big enterprises like Microsoft, McDonald's, Siemens, Red Bull, and so on. And they all use our tools in a global context to facilitate better collaboration, secure data management. So they use this, for example, if you have a Red Bull can, if you see it, that's all produced with our software. Or if you see any item from Microsoft, like Xbox and so on, that's all being built with our software, and obviously weeks and months ahead of before those things are being released. And this is very confidential data, and you can imagine if you have like a piece of packaging and that's being produced for 170 plus countries, that there are many people involved, and in different countries and languages, and how do you bring that in a secure process? And this is the technology we built. So on the one hand for collaboration, for process, but also on the other hand for distributing data into those different silos. So because it's not very efficient that, for example, every production agency has their own silo and copies data around the globe. So that's not very secure. So we built this decentralized software, basically breaking up those silos and everyone becoming one in a virtual ecosystem. And we thought, well, this is really cool tech, and why do we just have this for enterprises? So that's for use for everyone. And yesterday we explained that basically data is the new gold. And also in context of AI, an AI or a machine learning process is just as good as the data it gets. And like we've heard today, and one of the big problems is that in our today's world, we don't really own our data we produce day to day. So, I mean, if you have, for example, here an Apple phone and an Apple Watch, it collects all sort of health data from you, and that is all being put into an Apple server. So Apple uses this information, and then if you connect it with your Garmin watch, for example, all this information is copied from Apple to Garmin, and you have zero control where your data is going. And this is something what we want to change with our ecosystem. So you get back into control, that you actually own your data, and that you're becoming your own platform. So if you look at that now, that's actually, so we've built all the complex foundations for this ecosystem, like all these complex technology, which runs decentralized on your mobile devices, which means you don't need centralized servers. So if you look at today's world, and you use messaging apps like WhatsApp and so on, you think you talk to your friend through these apps, but actually you talk to a server. So, and obviously those companies they're not bringing you these tools because they're like Samaritans, or they actually have commercial interest to gather this data, to create profiles about you, to display the right advertising and so on. And we think that's wrong, because if you look at those companies like Meta or Facebook, If you look at Amazon's, Google's, Apple's, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the reason is why they become so big is because they own basically all of the data. And that's also where governments trying to break the system or trying to get in and trying to regulate this. And we have seen in just recent history, for example, with the European Parliament and so on, that they're creating new laws like the DMA or the platform law, which is basically enabling governments to censor information on these platforms. So they can go to YouTube and can tell you, you need to take that down. And they have like huge fines if you don't do that. Those fines are like 6 or 7% of really revenue of on Google. That's the kind of fines they're coming along with. And we think people should actually own this information and the data, and it should not be controlled by third parties over whom you don't have any control. And this is why the first application we built on top of our foundations is messaging. So that's like the biggest network or collaboration network you can imagine. And one of our goals is, well, we have a manifest, it's local first, it's peer-to-peer, and it's also easy accessible. So we built applications which are really easy to access, so that basically a grandma who can use WhatsApp is being able to use our system, but in a fully decentralized and autonomous way. So messaging is one of those first pieces, and you see it's like very, very easy to start and to set up, and you can get your identity, your name, and find your friends. And you can connect it with different maybe identities you have, and in order to link with other people and to be findable. And yeah, it's very basic application, but on the other hand, if you talk about processes and collaboration, it's the most important piece of processes communication. That's why we built the messaging piece. And basically every one of these chat rooms is an own decentralized platform running on the devices attached to the users. So and that's really interesting because, for example, here you see you have like, we call that a co, by the way. And you see you have maybe 3 users in there. You have the devices of those users, and you produce a lot of data. In this case, it's messages and data blocks. And it's also extendable, so you can build your own data models on top of it to do different things with it. And the concept of a co, actually, you can't see it. There's a lot of lines and clouds here. It's basically combining all the users' devices and building like nodes. So for example, if you talk to your friend and you're like 2 people and you have maybe 4 devices in common, which could be any home servers, mobile phones, computers, and so on, that's basically one node with one co. And your application, decentralized application, is exclusively running in this co, and it's also encrypted, and you have the control of the data. So there is no middleman, like with WhatsApp, which you could attack in order to gain access and information and data. And that's a very important concept. And you cannot use it only for messaging, you can use it for everything. So as an example, and how this ties into AI, which is our talk today, every user doesn't only just have like a mobile phone. You may have smart devices, which you can also plug into your co, like your fridge, your Tesla, your watch, your dishwasher, and all of these things produce information and data which are valuable and which you might also use to train AI in order to have like personal benefits, like a personal assistant in one case. And on the other hand, you also want to control the information all these devices are creating, because in today's world, you don't have any control. You get a web interface and the fridge is talking to whatever server in China, and you have no idea or no clue what's actually happening with this information and this data. So yeah, that was what I was talking about. And you can make all of these instances part of this ecosystem and part of your ecosphere and control it. So you see browser histories, GPS location, screen time, microphones, cameras. This is all valuable information, and we think you should own this information, and you should be the person who is able to make a decision, who gets to see it and who gets to process it. So you might also collect a lot of information, which is, for example, also valuable for external AIs. So you might collect information and data from sensors and things you have, like weather data and so on, which you might to propagate in the marketplace. So this is, for example, a data marketplace where people can connect in a co. So every co, by the way, it's like an own DAO, and you can control the access rights and who owns what of this co. You could even mint your own token, and you could use this to basically build a formation of people which collect sensor data, for example, from a weather station. And you can take this information, put it in a marketplace, and all this data we collect here is actually collected within your co and those users' devices. And it's actually a smart contract. So we capture data and encapsulate it as a smart contract, which means you can now have, for example, an AI filtering for specific information and data and using the data and get paid basically in crypto, which is then flowing back into the co and distributed to the members. So for example, you can see here that's basically about temperature, humidity, where it's happening, air pressure, noise, and so on. So you can build like complex filters in order to gather information which people can market. So you're now back into control of your own information, of your data, and you can sell this. So another feature of our messaging app is that it's not just pure messaging, but I told you of the concept of codes and services which you can interconnect, so different codes can interact with each other through a blockchain, and you can basically build very complex processes automated through smart contracts. So you can build like decentralized networks of value generation. So this is an example for a party case, and you can have a marketplace where you basically tie in now other codes, and there is like a code called Eat Now, which is basically a delivery service for food. And you can tie that in, bring it to your party. People can do collaborative ordering, and you can order your things. And in the background, this is again another pieces of infrastructure and codes. You can pay with your wallet. You see that's now becoming part of your chat. And so this message is turning now into a kind of WeChat where you don't have only chat, but also have integrated services. And for example, you have a backend, and that's a process. So it's like a Kanban-based process where you see like different codes which are automated through smart contracts, which is about preparing the food, delivering the food, and all this process, and picking it up, and you can interconnect these things. So now it becomes a huge network of collaboration and interaction and value generation for everyone, which is completely decentralized, so not connected to any centralized instance. Yeah, here you see it maybe better with the clouds. Okay, so this was a little hands-on on what we're currently building next to the technological foundation. So in terms of front ends and so on, which should hopefully give you a better idea what we're doing. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the presentation. Maybe there are some people who are not really familiar with the crypto DAO. That's a decentralized autonomous organization. That's very important to understand in this context. So in the IoT space, I guess I have seen some applications here. I could imagine that in an industrial context, this could be applied. I believe For instance, when you have processors where you use sensors, etc., and then you can calculate probabilities, and you also have a human interface always, and maybe that could be something that on the one hand you have the security of the channel, other that its interruption is very difficult. On the other hand, you have these connection possibilities that maybe people who are in the work have a job that have better qualified information to make decisions, for instance. I don't know it.
Exactly. So if you look at, like into an industrial context, so basically it's very interesting also to use in an enterprise case. So that's where we come from, and it's also engineered into here, which means as an enterprise you can lock the system down onto specific devices and storages which are owned by you. But it works also decentralized in a way that on the one hand you even don't need to have to use internet. So so for example the messenger and the protocol we built can use over-the-air protocol like Bluetooth, or it's completely open, the system. You could embed protocols like Meshtastic, which is a low energy, long range Funk protocol, which means you can have like 30 kilometers or more and have attached a sensor to it, and you don't need any internet for that. So you can attach these things in order to gather information and gather data, which are exclusively stored on your environment and your network. But the cool part is you can basically open this up and propagate this in the marketplace and make it accessible to others. So you get this interoperability, which allows you to interact with others and also to trade information and data in this case. And because it's completely open, you also can build your own interfaces on top. So the messenger is basically just an interface built on top of the foundation we have built with all those SDKs and APIs and so on. So it makes it really easy for everyone to build on top stuff and leverage this entire network and the security of it.
Yeah. Any questions from your side? Yes?
I think a lot of things you're trying to do are really interesting. The point that I would be concerned about is most of the devices you're referring to come with very, very extensive EULA, which they rely upon you not reading. And if you did read, you'd understand that all the data they generate is theirs, not yours. How are you dealing with that? Because, I mean, you're right when you say that, for example, your mobile phone, your watch, if it's a smartwatch, your computer, your fridge, they're all network devices, they're all storage devices, they're all computational devices. But they're all really tied up with the OS and the systems of the manufacturer.
Yeah, of course that's a concern. But the idea is to build a network which is so huge that it builds sort of an attractive marketplace by itself to attract vendors to take part of it. And obviously people using this in such systems, they don't want that their data is basically used without their consent and control. And I mean, the only way to break this is basically to break the monopolists, the centralists, and building something decentralized, which actually allows you again to own data, which is also censorship proof and everything. And that's the idea behind it. And also the system obviously allows a transfer of from A to B, which means you can embed like your smartphone and the watch, and although this information is being sent to Apple, you can still pick up this information and leverage for your own use and market it if you want. But once people realize about, okay, there's another data breach happening, there's my pictures on the internet, and so on, people will not want to use those systems anymore. So there are studies which say, for example, children's, like young people growing up at the moment, they cannot imagine in future that their data, their images, and so on are being stored on someone else's server. And I think that's true, and this is a solution for that, which allows you to actually own your things, and you don't need those external providers.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for this presentation.